actually, I had the privilege of carrying out 2 interviews. The first one was with Peter Katzenstein. He was with us a few years ago, so maybe you remember his arguments. So this time I'm going to concentrate on the interview I did with Will Kimlicka. That was on the issue of minority and the policy of multiculturalism. The main message that Kimlicka wants to pass is that the recognition and defense of the rights of minorities is by now, it's becoming by now a well-established in the international agenda. He also wants to suggest that if it is properly implemented, the policy of multiculturalism is not a zero-sum game for the majority. It may be indeed a mutually beneficial policy, one that brings benefit both to the majority and to the minority in any country. The process of nation building and the correlate of the spread of national unity brought with it the marginalization of minorities. Of course, there are functional benefits to the nation building endeavor if we speak the same language, if we share the same national identity, if we have a sense of solidarity. However, this came with a huge cost. As a consequence of this dynamic, minorities suffered in many countries. They were ostracized, stigmatized, coercively assimilated, expelled, or just killed. Any attempt to express a minority identity would be seen as a disloyal act, as a threat, as a fifth column, culturally deficient, primordial, primitive, and so on. This led to cycles of polarization and distrust, and majorities came to the belief that their flourishing depended on the suppression of minorities. In a nutshell, what Kimlicka wants to do in the interview, but broadly with his work, is to look for a way to preserve the advantages of the nation building. That is something that for him we cannot get rid of, but also to reduce or indeed eliminate the injustices imposed on minorities. From an historical point of view, the situation changed after the Second World War. The national liberation movement, post-colonialism movement, the Afro-American civil rights strides in the US brought to sort of open up opportunities for the recognition of minority. The paradigm of multiculturalism later on spread through different process of adaptation in each country, differently received and applied in many countries, but not in all. Thanks to international organizations, thanks to civil society organizations. And in this sense, and through many specific mobilization and institutional achievements. Think about the 2007 UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. So in that sense, and this I would like to connect with what Fred was saying, globalization may indeed be also an engine for the improvement of suppressed groups, marginalized groups for minorities. In that sense, globalization was a force for good. Of course, this kind of discourse is framed within the discourse of human rights, and Kimlicka wants to suggest that if you are a defender of human rights, you also need to defend the collective rights of minority groups. Why so important? Well, recognizing the rights of minorities is important because it brings material benefits to the minorities, but also because there are psychological and emotional benefits attached to that in terms of self-esteem, self-respect that comes from the public recognition of the different identity and different political claims of minorities. Indigenous rights, minority rights are all then important. But possibly the most challenging issue now is related to immigrants' rights. This is where the most of the resistance is at the moment. It's on the issue of migrants' rights that we need to work through this, Kimberly argues, through slow educational political advocacy programs in order to reduce the suffering of those groups. And this is particularly important if we think to the case of, for instance, the migrants continuously crossing the Mediterranean Sea. Just 2 days ago in Italy, in front of the coastline of Sicily, a boat turned upside down and there were several hundred immigrants died. And this is, for sure, a consequence of certain kinds of policy adopted in the EU toward immigrants. So in that sense, what Kimberly is suggesting is to find out a framework that may prevent this kind of suffering from happening in the future.
Thank you so much, Raffaele.